Thank you, everybody, for joining us today for the industry update, February 17th. Again, please make sure to mute your lines and use the chat feature to everyone for questions at the end of the presentation. And we appreciate you getting on our call this week. I'm going to pass this over to John to do a few introductions, and then Melissa will give you a little update.
Thank you, Hope. Good morning and welcome to all of you. Thank you for joining us today for this week's webinar. I don't know how many it is now. It's almost 50 webinars, I guess we've done since this crisis began, but we're glad that you're with us today. I would remind you that today's information is for the benefit of hotels, restaurants, and travel and tourism and other friends of PRLA. It is off the record. It's not designed for press purposes. We do entertain all press inquiries, but not at this time. So if you're with the press, please disconnect. And with that, I'm pleased to introduce Melissa Bova.
Hi, everyone. Welcome back. It's been almost a year. And I think when we started this, we were thinking everything will be back to normal by summer, and here we are. But welcome back. Not a ton of updates. The biggest one today is going to be federal, but I'm going to provide you some things to start thinking about, some action plans that PRLA is going to be moving forward with over the coming weeks, just to kind of give you a feel what we are focusing on and what our focus is going to be moving forward. So let's jump into federal. Okay. If you do anything today, pay attention to this part of my update, because things are happening at the federal level and they're going to be happening quickly, as we've discussed in the past, because we do not have Republican-controlled Senate and a Democrat-controlled House anymore. So everything's controlled by the Democrats. So things are going to be voted on quickly and moving quickly. To that end, the House is going to begin consideration of that $2 trillion package that the Biden administration has put forward. That is going to be happening over the coming days. Raise the wage will be included in that package that the House considers. There's no question. The House already passed a $15 minimum wage. They already passed legislation eliminating the tipped wage. There is no question that that is going to be included in the package that the U.S. House sends over to the Senate. So the chat box is going to start blowing up with all types of links, because we really need you to start activating in advance of that. The House Recovery Package also, as John covered last week, could include that $120 billion Restaurants Act, or one of our top priorities. I've gotten this question before. It's called Restaurants Act. It's not just limited to restaurants. It includes literally, if you are serving food, you are covered by Restaurants Act, and that's inclusive of our caterers and items such as that. So that is expected to all be included in the package that the House considers over the coming days. If we do not start pushing back on the raise the wage, $1 minimum wage, the elimination of the tipped wage, the Senate is going to get it and move quickly, and it might not end as good as we want it to end, which is why we're asking you to start sending out messages to your Congress people, and also start sending messages to Senator Casey and Senator Toomey, because the Senate is really going to be the ones that decide if this is going to be included in this package or not. Our hope is that from the pressure that we have from the industry is going to convince Senator Schumer, who's majority leader in the Senate, not to include a minimum wage increase and an elimination of the tipped wage increase, or elimination of the tipped wage in this package, recovery package, as of this moment. That does not mean that this isn't something that they will consider in the future. So if we hit hard and fast right now to push back on this, that is going to help us long term as this comes up. We have all types of facts and figures that have been, Ben or Steph, can we start putting in the phone to action links and all of that we have from the National Restaurant Association? We'll be blasting all of this on social as well. There's lots of data that's out there, which is not new to all of you, but generally 82% of all restaurants say an increase in the elimination of the tip wage or an increase in the minimum wage will impact their operations. Just all types of facts and figures. Many of you participated in a survey. 85% of full service restaurants would be impacted. 98% of you said you would have to increase menu prices. 84% We're going to have to cut jobs from your normal level. You're going to have to be replacing items, people with machinery. We're seeing in a lot of states where they've eliminated the tipped wage, we see counter service popping up again to eliminate kind of the full service experience to lower costs. And then, of course, this also leads to a reduction in benefits for employees. So we really need you to start telling your story. And like I said, we have all types of information, a lot of information now in there. But the most important thing we need you to do is that link from Steph, which has that infographic and also that phone to action, so you can start reaching out to your legislators at the federal level. That's our focus right now. I'm not losing sleep at the state over this. I am losing some sleep over Congress. So like I said, what we're doing right now is to push back hard, make this go away right now. And then when it comes up again, because it will come up again, have put enough doubt in the minds of our elected officials that maybe eliminating the tipped wage and a $15 minimum wage isn't really the way to go in terms of policy right now or in the near future. So that's really kind of top of mind, everything that's happening right now. Like I said, we do expect the $120 billion Restaurants Act to be in the House package. We're hoping the Senate will consider at least the $25 billion restaurant recovery package that they already kind of took a temperature check on. So we hope no matter what, we will have more funding to all of you. To that end, I don't have it on the slide here, but I do know that many of you are running into a lot of problems with your second round of P3. And John and I both had a pretty lengthy update from our National Association about it yesterday. What we're finding is the fact that we did such a great job convincing Congress that we need that 3.5 times on the P3, that we need the flexibility to use it. And then the SBA all of a sudden decided that they want to put some roadblocks in our way. So many of you are running into problems of getting clearance to get that second round of P3. We're starting to put pressure on Congress and the SBA. Our national associations have been doing an awesome job of that. So right now, while the P3 funds have not run out, once those roadblocks are removed and all of you that are kind of in limbo waiting for your funds, those funds are going to go really fast. And we probably will run out of that second round of P3. So if you are thinking about applying for the P3, please make sure that you do it and start that process sooner than later, because once the SBA kind of has that, awakening in terms of maybe they shouldn't be putting roadblocks in the way of an industry that has been more impacted than any other, we expect those funds to go really quickly. So if you have not applied for your P3, please make sure you do so sooner than later. And then also we did put in the update last week. We've been getting a lot of questions from many of you regarding how you can kind of bundle your P3 usage with the ERTC, which is that employee retention tax credit. We had a great webinar last week with our accounting firm that answered a lot of those questions. And we included a really great document in Friday's daily update that really breaks down how you can utilize the P3 and the ERTC in overlapping quarters or similar quarters. So please take a look at that. These are all, like I said, not going to save the industry, but they're a good step to get us through the coming months until we can get this next $2 trillion package across the finish line and drive more funds into your hands. Next slide. So as I updated last week, Act 1 of 2021, you all know it as Senate Bill 109. That's that $145 million grant program specific to restaurants and hotels. Last week, the applications opened for counties to start designating who will be processing the grant. So they can designate their local CEDO or CDFI. Each county is going to designate who is processing the grants for their county. This is not a state-run grant program. To that end, we have asked, and we've talked about this a little bit, I brought it up last week, I had sent a number of questions over to the state regarding the 300 employee cap, the $15 million net profit or net value for eligible applicants, because we wanted some clarification on those pieces. They have since come back and said the law specifically says we can't answer your questions. So this is probably going to be something that each individual county is going to determine. So I know many of you have been asking me, What are the details for the application? Each county is going to handle it on their own in their own way. So it's going to be 67 possibly different applications. If we can get some type of standard guidance from them, we will certainly get it out to you. Now, what we did get, sometimes it's the little things. We did find out last night how much each county is getting, because as we said, it's 145 million and they're allocated to individual counties. So for example, Philadelphia, we mentioned last night, is getting $17.9 million. So that's going to be given to Philadelphia to be giving out those grants between $5,000 and $50,000. So depending on your county, for example, I know we probably have a bunch of you from Allegheny. Allegheny County is getting 13.7 million, and that's what they will be allocating for their program. I know I saw Crystal from Berks on here. Berks is getting 4.7 million from the grant program. So if you have any questions about your specific county, shoot me an email or shoot Ben an email. I shared this with Ben as well, and we can certainly tell you how much your county is getting. And like I said, it's up to them to determine the amount of the grants, who's getting the grants specifically in terms of need, and then of course the eligibility. So all of that will begin on March 15th. That's when the grant program will open at your county. So we have some time, but right now the counties are gearing up. March 15th is when they need to open up their program. It is a rolling grant program, so that's not going to be first come, first serve. Like I said, those of you that have been shut down by the governor or had more than a 50% revenue loss are going to be eligible before those who have been less impacted. The funding for Act 1 is based generally on the county, and since you asked, Erie County is getting a little over 3 million. So there's a formula kind of that's being used based on population, generally speaking. Also, beyond the grant program, budget hearings are underway. So the legislature is not in session right now. They are having budget hearings. So we just started that yesterday. I believe tomorrow, for those of my tourism friends, DCED will be testifying before the House Appropriations Committee. And we will be providing some updates of kind of key committee meetings in the daily update if you are a political nerd and you want to watch these committee meetings. But generally, and I just saw Lancaster, so I'll look up Lancaster really quick. Lancaster is getting 6.2 million. But generally, these meetings are, the governor made his budget proposal. He proposed a personal income tax increase. He also proposed a minimum wage increase and tipped wage elimination. And now it's time for the appropriation committees in the House and Senate to basically ask his departments questions about how they've been operating over the last year, questions about why they justify the budget address that they have made. And from there, the House and Senate will craft their own budgets. To that end, PRLA's legislative priorities, which we have updated that document. I think Steph will probably throw it in the box for you. We have some of our bills are being introduced. So many of you, I said, we had PRLA's priorities and we had co-sponsorship circulating. Now our bills are being introduced. We will be asking all of you, and I mentioned this a few weeks ago, and then I put a stop on it at the time because I didn't think the timing was right, but we will be drafting a letter that you can kind of fill in. Now we have a voter voice program, which is awesome. We want this to be a more personalized letter from all of you that really shows the impact COVID has had on your specific business. We have the big numbers. We employed this many people in 2019, and this is how many people are laid off, and this is how much revenue we've lost as a whole. Those are really big numbers, but they're also really hard for legislators to comprehend and to really understand the impact. So we're going to be putting these letters together for you to send either directly to your legislators or get them to PRLA, and we will get them, compile them, and send them over ourselves. But this is something we're going to be asking all of you to do. So start thinking about it probably second week of March, because they're in budget hearings right now. We could start crafting these letters and sending them, but if they're not in the Capitol kind of discussing, when you kind of get together with people and you talk about things, if the legislators aren't in Harrisburg talking about things, we would be sending them letters and they would be reading them. And then 2 weeks later, they would forget because they probably get a lot of letters. So we really want to time this to match up with when they return to session, when they start voting on bills, and when our package of recovery bills will start moving through the legislative process. So please stay tuned as it pertains to all of that regarding our legislative priorities. Like I said, these are items that we hope to move within the coming weeks, and then COVID will slowly go away, we hope. And then we can start looking at farther reaching, broader PRLA legislative priorities like we did once upon a time in 2019. Next slide. Local updates. The only, and I have to double check because I will talk a little bit about mitigation stuff. Philadelphia, last week when I was like rolling my eyes and saying how terrible it is with Philadelphia and these HVAC guidance, well, I can't roll my eyes anymore or they'll fall out of my head, but it's only getting worse. Philadelphia is allowing 50% indoor dining if restaurants can fill out an application certifying their HVAC system kind of meets these requirements. So far, out of 6,000 restaurants in Philadelphia, 60 have submitted an application, which just shows how not user-friendly the application is. And of those 60, more than half have been returned because the department said that they were not filled out properly. So really what we're seeing in Philadelphia is what we predicted all along, is they've created a cumbersome system that is impossible for any person, and actually, honestly, some HVAC experts to understand. And Ben is putting in the chat some YouTube tutorials that the city just released today. For those of you in Philadelphia, I watched them before, which is why I'm feeling a little punchy right now. There is no additional helpful information in there outside of what's already on the application, but there is music. So there's that. So I don't know if it's going to be helpful to anybody. You do need an anemometer. So they have acknowledged that you do need a tool to complete all of this. And then, of course, they say that you need to ensure that you have a MERV 11 filter. Most of your filters don't state what MERV they are. And then also they say that you have to fill in what your outside airflow is, which nobody knows either. And they don't really provide guidance on how to figure any of that out. So we are continuing to have conversations with the city and continuing to push forward in terms of trying to come up with just reasonable standards that restaurants can do on their own, because the current document that's out there, as I said, for all of you around the state, if you were given the opportunity to go from 25 to 50% in time for Valentine's Day, you'd probably go gangbusters trying to do it. And that's how impossible this document was that before Valentine's Day, only 16 had submitted. And since then, we are up to 60 of 6,000 restaurants. So Philadelphia is still clearly driving me a little crazy. To that end, for my Philadelphia friends, many of you are familiar when we engaged with emergency paid leave. It was a piece of legislation that was filed last year. It did sunset on December 31st. It allowed up to 80 hours of paid leave for your employees if they had to quarantine because of COVID, if they had COVID, pretty much kind of extended Families First that provided the federal reimbursement for paid leave to those that were not covered by Families First. And that was a huge win for PRLA to ensure that if you're covered by Families First, this emergency paid leave would not extend to you. They have extended the date. Like I said, the bill did sunset on December 31st. They're extending it to be 1 week after the emergency declaration ends, and they are giving anybody with 50 employees or more another 80 hours. So if your employees utilized 80 hours because they had to quarantine because of COVID and you used Families First for that, that was fine. You can only tap into Families First once. So once that 80 hours is up, you don't get another 80. Philadelphia is requiring you to provide another 80. So it's another 80 hours of paid leave that the business community would have to pay out of pocket. So we are meeting with the prime sponsor of the bill to try and work through what her intent is and not have any repercussions for businesses within the city. We are very cognizant, of course, about how difficult it has been to operate if you've been able to operate at all. So please stay tuned for my Philadelphia friends regarding how we're going to need you to engage on that, because it is a bill that is going to trickle down to a lot more businesses than the first bill did. In Allegheny County, like I said, I think I've updated every few weeks. It's continuing to move through the process. We will have a paid sick leave bill in Allegheny County. It will be the same as Pittsburgh's paid leave bill. Nothing will take effect until the emergency declaration ends. And we will provide more details once that legislation is passed. That's kind of what's happening at the local level. I think did I put in okay, I did do a statewide mitigation slide. So I do have an update other than no changes. Vaccines, obviously Philadelphia is vaccinating restaurant workers right now. The rest of the state is not. So restaurant workers in Philadelphia are in 1B. It's the one good thing Philadelphia did for us. The rest of the state is in 1C, and we're not there yet. So as the state continues to move forward with vaccinations, as they continue to try and fix what has been the hot mess of vaccinations, Pennsylvania is ranked, like I said, second to last, I think, in the country in terms of vaccine distribution. We hope that we will reach into our community and be able to start vaccinating our hotel and restaurant workers in the other 66 counties. And that is hotel and restaurant workers are in 1C in the state of Pennsylvania. The question that you all are going to ask, so I'm going to try and beat you to it. John and I have been a little frustrated. About 3 weeks ago, we reached out to the administration requesting a meeting to discuss loosening some of the restrictions. The biggest one, of course, being the 10% in terms of catered events, private events. You can only have 10%. It's ridiculous. New York is 150. Other states are allowing private events. We need Pennsylvania to move. We also think that with cases down, we should be having discussions of bringing back bar seating and eliminating the meal requirement. We have requested a meeting. From what we've been told, the administration has no changes to announce, so therefore they have not said yes to a meeting. We have requested a meeting for next week, and if we do not get that, we are prepared to move forward again with a press statement and getting the facts out there that it's time to move forward and drawing more of that media attention and legislative attention to the fact that we need to start loosening restrictions, and the administration is not having that conversation with us yet. So we've requested again, but please stay tuned. We are prepared to push back on this, and that will be next week if we do not get a meeting with the administration that at least gives us, if not the next steps for reopening, the timeline, the reasonable timeline, if there could be a reasonable timeline to start moving forward with reopening. So we are not giving up. I know John, Ben, Steph, all of us are hearing from you. We are as frustrated as all of you are. So it's time to push back. It's time to be mean again. And as you know, that's kind of my specialty. So we're giving the administration, like I said, we'd like the opportunity to meet with them and talk through it. If that doesn't happen, we will pursue other avenues. And I think we can go to upcoming events. I told you this week's quick.
It is quick. We do have some chapter meetings that are gearing up for next week and in March. So please check our calendar of events, and you can register straight on there, and you'll get your Zoom link so that you can get on and hear what's happening on a local, regional level, and talk with and network with the individuals in your area. Western chapter will be having a legislative roundtable on the 2nd. So please, if you're interested in connecting with the legislators in that area, please get on that roundtable, but you do need to pre-register prior to that date so you can get all the details for the Zoom meeting. Next week, we'll be back with Melissa, and if we have any special guests popping on, we'll make sure to advertise that through our social media and our daily updates so that you know what is upcoming. Ecolab will be having a webinar on the 18th to talk about water, the direct and hidden impacts of water on hotel operations. So definitely take some time to check that out if you're working in a hotel. And if you didn't get enough information on the employee retention tax credits from our webinar, the National Restaurant Association will be having some National Tax Office leaders and special counsel getting on a call to talk about the 2020 and 2021 new rules, your full federal tax deductibility of PPP expenses and state tax deductibilities, tax extenders, qualified improvement properties. So that'll be on the 24th. So please check that out if you want to get some more information. And as always, you can register and get a copy of that. As always, we're always reminding you about Carry Out PA, making sure that you're updated. And for HARP, please keep an eye out. I believe we will be opening up next week to accept another 200 applications for the HARP relief grants. This has been going great, and we've had some wonderful support. So we will publish that through our daily update and through our social media channels. I don't have a date, so as soon as we do, you'll see it in those areas. As always, we're having our ServSafe classes, and they are filling up quick because of the restrictions on indoor events. So please, if you need to get certified, make sure to look at our calendar of events, and you can access the registration straight there. If you have anybody that is looking for scholarships, the scholarship program is open until April 1st. We will be awarding 12 $2,000 scholarships, and I would say we've really only received about 40 applicants. So please promote this to your local school districts and to your local, to anybody that's in your restaurant that is pursuing this degree. And with that, I think we've got a few questions.
Okay, before I start through with questions, I do have one extra thing to throw out there. If you are a restaurant operator or you're just a business that has tipped employees and your tipped employees want to engage on the fact that eliminating the tipped wage means a pay cut to them, if they don't get tips anymore, it means that they get a flat wage and not the $20 to $25 the industry is making. So if you have employees that want to engage on this, are willing to do an op-ed or speak to a reporter if we get a media request, please let us know. That's people hear from us all the time. And for those of you that are really engaged with PRLA and our advocacy efforts as it pertains to meetings at the national level and the state level, what we hear from legislators is where are the employees? Can we hear from the employees? What do they want? So if you do have employees that are willing to engage, that's going to be so impactful in terms of our legislative efforts. And John just unmuted, so I think he has something to add.
Yeah, that's a really good point, Melissa. I would just add that if you have a tipped employee who wants to engage, an op-ed is something that would sound very daunting. We and our partners at the National Restaurant Association will work with your team member to create the op-ed. So it's not going to be a situation where they have to do a tremendous amount of work. We just need their honest opinions about how important tips are to them. So if you get someone like that, get the information to us, either Melissa, Steph, or me, and we'll connect them with the right people to help them get it done. Thank you.
Okay, so if you applied for a second draw of P3 and haven't received, can you still apply for the shuttered venue grant and just not accept the second P3 draw? If the SVOG applies to you, yes, but you can't do both. You can't do a P3 and the shuttered venue grant. But double check that, because I do know that grant is pretty specific in terms of who it applies to and who it doesn't. Many of you have been shuttered and you don't meet the definition of that. But my understanding is as long as you don't get the P3, you can apply for that grant. And I did mention that the Act 1, it is based on counties. Do you know how the P3 and the idle draws will affect how much will qualify under the Restaurants Act? The 120 billion, which is probably not going to be what gets across the finish line. Technically, you're supposed to be deducting what you got in terms of the P3 and the idle. So for the 120 billion, in theory, you would say for the 8 months that I've been shut down, this is how much I've lost. And then you would deduct how much you got in P3 and the idle, and that remaining amount is what you would get in terms of the 120 billion Restaurants Act. The 25 billion, of which, John, correct me if I'm wrong, we haven't seen the language for yet. If that's what gets in the final package, we're not sure how the disbursement will work, but we don't expect you to be able to utilize P3 and that grant for the same thing. So you would have to apply the 25 billion, whatever you qualify for times that you didn't have the P3, depending on how that works. John, did you have something to add?
Oh, that's what I know too. They're saying right now the language is largely the same as it was in the 120. It's just the amount is different. It is pared down. Thank you.
And like I said, we will have more information of how all of that works as well. A lot of unknowns. It's kind of like the Affordable Care Act. You don't know what's in it until you pass it. I think we had a question about vaccine signups in Philly, which Ben provided. Was there any update on the HARP applications opening up again? Hope, I think you answered that question. And then Ben's filling in some questions we had regarding some of the county grants. So, and we'll see, like I said, and we've said this before, 145 million, and we had another call with some freshman legislators yesterday. It's great. You know, it's 145 million that we didn't have before, but we certainly recognize without a large infusion from the federal government, 145 is really a drop in the bucket for what this industry is going to need. So hang in there as we continue to advocate, and we ask you to advocate. We gave you a little bit of a reprieve while they were going through elections, but now that they're back in session, we really need you to engage regarding our advocacy efforts. And as we mentioned, March 2nd, I think, is our Western Chapter Roundtable. If you are from that area, please make sure you register for that. It's very straightforward. We usually get great turnout from our elected officials out there, and we have a lot of Republicans and Democrats out there that really, I think, could come together in support of our legislative priorities in terms of our package. So please take the time to join that call, to remind them, just because we are now almost a year into this pandemic, that doesn't mean that we're getting used to it and we're finding better ways to survive. It just means that the pain is so much worse than it has been ever before. I don't have a lot of questions this week. We're gonna have to bring some guest speakers back, or I'm gonna need to provide some more exciting updates, I guess.
Well, yeah, I think
I guess everybody gets 30 minutes back.
Yeah, I think we're done. Well, thank you everybody for joining us today. As always, this is recorded. We will make sure to send it out and put it up on our website. And we will be back next week. If we bring anybody on special, we'll make sure to let you know prior to Wednesday so you know what to expect. And thank you all for joining us today. Stay safe and have a good rest of your week.
Thanks, Melissa. Thank you, Hope. Thanks, Ben. Good to see you all.